Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's episode of the podcast, I'm joined by the head coach of the Stonehill women's hockey team, Tara Watchorn. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Tara, and how's everything going?
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me. Everything's going good. We just started getting our postseason training going, a little bit of work in the weight room, a little bit of skills on the ice, so ramping back up.
Yeah, I sort of want to ask you, what's an off season look like for a coach in college hockey? Because you obviously have a lot of time off, but I'm assuming it's busy trying to get the players ready for next season, but also trying to find new players to add to your team as well.
Yeah, there's always something to do, right? It's nice, like as soon as your season ends, you have 2 weeks off no matter what. The players get a break. It happened to align for them on spring break, so I'm sure they like that. But I think the biggest thing is, we have 6 weeks here until the end of the semester. So 6 weeks that we get the team together to truly create a good off-season training environment before they all go home. So I think the big thing is you just want to take advantage of that while they're all here and start to gear up and create that culture again for next season. And then the recruiting too. Obviously, a lot of junior programs and leagues are going into playoffs, so just kind of juggling a little bit of everything.
Now, you obviously had such a young team last year with a lot of freshmen. How many new players do you expect to be on your team for next season?
Look to have a few coming in next year. We just announced a little bit of our signing there on our social media. And I think the biggest thing is we traveled probably at the baseline type of roster last year. So, I mean, a lot of credit goes out to the girls and staying healthy throughout the season. It will be a little bit nicer to come in, have a good competitive environment, and just bolster the roster up a little bit.
And also, there's going to be a lot of competition for some playing time as well. As a coach, how do you sort of try to manage all that?
It is. I think it's just player management, right? And it all comes down to communication, building relationships with the players. But I think that competitive environment is huge for the team, right? It creates a little bit more stress, but practice tempo is a little bit higher. And it's just great for their development. But I think as a coach, you just always have that line of communication open and try to do your best.
And one thing that's sort of been new to women's college hockey this year, at least from my perspective, has been the use of the transfer portal. It seems more players are now in the transfer portal than ever before, probably because of the extra year, because of the COVID season. So, as a coach, do you plan to utilize that transfer portal? I already saw that you brought in Grace Parker from BU, but is that something you're going to try to look at more during this offseason?
Yeah, I think you have to keep it in mind, no doubt. It's a part of the landscape now, and the reality is, a little bit of experience never hurts. And like you mentioned, we have a young team, so I think it's something that we're always considering. But I come back to whether it's an incoming freshman or a transfer, it's got to be the right fit, and we try to do our best to make sure that it's the right fit for the group and a good person, and we'll go from there.
How do you try to find a person that fits in your culture? Because I remember listening to an interview with Merrimack's men's hockey coach, and he was saying talent's everywhere. You can always find talent. You have the internet. It's all over the place. It's really trying to find a right person that fits in your locker room because he thinks success starts in the room. I'm curious from what your perspective is on that, and how do you try to find the right people for your program so that team chemistry can grow throughout the season, but you also have good people off the ice as well because you want to see people. You want to coach players that you want to interact with every day.
100%. And, I don't know if there's a true way of really knowing, right? Like you do your best through the recruiting process. And I think ultimately it comes down to trusting your gut. But, for me, it's just trying to have those conversations beyond the bare minimum, right? And I think you want players that, fall in love with the school as much as they do the hockey program because it creates that holistic experience. And I think it's huge for their happiness and well-being. But getting an understanding of what they're looking for out of college hockey, I think, is huge. I think you want different personalities. I think you don't want the same type of player and same type of personality. It's that diversity that really adds to the locker room and allows them to learn from each other. And then meeting the families. I think that also kind of helps paint a full picture. And, they're part of it too. They're part of that culture. We like to have our families be close and travel in packs on the road and that kind of thing. So you try to do your due diligence as much as you can, but then you just got to trust your gut.
And obviously, you had a brand new team this year. I assume most of the players never even played with each other up until that point. So, how'd you try to build that chemistry throughout the season and get that culture that you were looking for?
Yeah, we just finished doing our individual meetings, and we've kind of laughed as a staff and players. it was unique. I think the cool part about having everyone be new and everyone wanting to take a chance on this new program is that we all had that in common, right? Everyone came in and they wanted to be a part of building something special. And I think that bond unites you past a lot of adversity. But the reality is there was no way that we were going to put 18 freshmen, 4 transfers, 22 new players in one room and just expect that culture was going to snap into place right away. And so we laughed. What we learned was you got to be patient. Building relationships takes time, but having really high standards for our norms and behaviors, because we have to create a safe environment where everyone can come in and feel respected and valued, and then the relationships will grow from there. But, I think what I really feel passionate about, especially after year one, is that it's not about having a perfect environment or perfect culture. It's about how you respond to each moment of growth that, presents itself. And I think that over time is what is going to allow us to build that culture and manufacture the legacy that we want.
Yeah, that's sort of something unique that you had to face, because a lot of coaches usually have those seniors that have been with each other for such a long time. So those freshmen that come in can sort of lean on those players to help know what the culture is like that you already built. But for your case, you pretty much had to build the culture all in this year, and sort of hopefully those players now sort of know what it's like. And once those new players come in for the following season, it's just going to be something that comes natural. It's not going to be something that you have to keep working on throughout a year.
For sure. And I think it will provide new challenges, right? I think,
Yeah.
The girls have a little bit of protectiveness over this thing that they've built. So I think, making sure we bring the new ones into the fold is very important. But to that point, I'm happy you mentioned that, because that was another strategy that we used. We had 4 transfers who, a lot of them were still younger. We had 1 grad transfer. But I think that the biggest thing was really, really investing time with them. And the hope was, as a staff, if we invested in our leadership group, that ripple effect would happen. So I think that was something that you can't control everything. That team isn't going to snap into place, right away. But that was another strategy that we really used as a coaching staff, is to try to build that relationship with our leadership group very strong as fast as we could. So to hope that would kind of ripple out.
So I want to start off talking about the beginning of your hockey career and sort of work all the way up to where you are today. So you're from Newcastle, Ontario. So talk about growing up there and how'd you start playing hockey?
Yeah, Newcastle, Ontario, I always call it the little secret slice of heaven. It's just a small town off the 401, about hour and a bit outside of Toronto, right on Lake Ontario. And, I really felt like it was a cool community to grow up in. It's a small town. I grew up playing with the boys, playing down the street. And it was a great, safe community where I got to thrive and really work hard. And from there, I ended up getting to go on. I played boys hockey for a while there, probably until Pee Wee, and then, transitioned over to girls hockey after that. But I really do feel like getting to grow up in a town like that was a great foundation for me moving forward.
Who was your favorite player growing up? I'm assuming it was someone on the Toronto Maple Leafs, if I had to guess.
I am a Leafs fan, but I will say I was a little, unique growing up. One of my favorite D was actually Adam Foote. And then another one I really liked watching was Scott Niedermayer. And, I'd be remiss to say if, you look at that Canadian national team, and I think a lot of role models there too, from, Carolyn Ouellette, Haley Wickenheiser, Jana Hefford, all women that paved the way for all of us.
Yeah. Scott Niedermayer, I've heard he's like one of the hardest workers in the NHL, but he never broke a sweat. That was what all his former teammates used to say about him.
Yeah, that skating efficiency was fun to watch.
Now, before college hockey, you played for the Durham West Junior Lightning. How'd you get the opportunity to go to that team, and what was your experience like there?
Yeah, I feel very fortunate. If you think about women's hockey, it's not that old, right? The first World Championships was 1990s. I mean, that was the year I was born. But I was very fortunate that it was kind of taking off as I was going through my junior career and, my playing career. And if you look at, Ontario is one of the best places I feel that you can grow up and play. There's a lot of teams and great leagues to play in. And at the time, Durham West, about 30 minutes from where I'm from, was probably the biggest girls center that you could play for. Like Whitby and some of the ones outside of that were less developed at the time, which are now great programs. So for me, it was just going to the closest place that I could play and be competitive. I really, really feel fortunate it worked out. I mean, you talk about I got to play with the likes of Natalie Spooner, Jen Wakefield in minor hockey. And I really, really think about that and having women that, really could push you and create that competitive environment.
What's your best memory from your junior hockey days when you look back on it now?
We got to win provincials. That was a little bit when I was younger. But honestly, it was just playing at that level. It was playing with Spoons, and it was playing with Wake, and women that are lifelong friends of mine now, and really getting to chase our dreams together, I think would be the cool part.
You then went on to play for Boston University. Talk about your experience there as a player and what you took away from it, because obviously you won some hockey championships, you made some national championship games as well. So it felt like you were sort of in that core best years of BU when you look back on that women's hockey history.
Yeah, really cool to think about. Obviously, it's a program now that's created a name for itself. And what's so unique, obviously, starting a program at Stonehill is, BU, when I was going through the recruiting process, was only 3-4 years into the history of the women's program. And to be honest, the same way that excited me at Stonehill, that excited me at BU as a player, to get to go to a school like that, great academics in an amazing city, and go and be a part of building something at a hockey school nonetheless. I think that was the biggest thing, is you saw the history and tradition of hockey on the men's side. And in my mind, there's no way that couldn't build on the women's side. And to get to be a part of building that success and tradition and history was really cool. And it was my sophomore year that we won our first hockey's championship. I was fortunate to be the one that put the puck in the back of the net in
Nice.
overtime. And from there, now Marie-Philippe Poulin joins us, Catherine Ward, Jen Wakefield, and it really, really did springboard pretty quick after that, which was really cool, making it to the national championship the following year. And it just goes to show that it doesn't, if a program's supported, if you really, really invest and build something special, people will come. And it just
Yeah.
shows how fast you can grow a program, and pretty cool and humbled to be a part of that.
What's the best college memory you have? I'm assuming it's winning those hockey's championships, because I remember talking to Kaylee Fratkin, and she was saying that you guys were sort of cursed in the bean pot during her time there because you could never find a way to win one. So I'm curious what were your thoughts on that, and just also winning those championships in Hockey East and making those Frozen Fours as well.
Yeah, we definitely were cursed when it comes to the bean pot. I feel fortunate I got to be there when we did win it as a
Yeah.
coach, but it was, the very first Hockey's championship, I think you look back on that, we were an underdog team, like we weren't a high seed going into the tournament, and just to get to be a part of history with that was really, really cool.
How does your college hockey days with Boston University as a player help you as a coach today?
I think the biggest thing is, as a coach is that, and someone that went through what our girls are going through, is that you can anticipate the roadblocks, right? You can, I'm guessing I am getting older, but it wasn't that long ago. So I feel like I can really empathize and anticipate where the struggles are going to be, where the good parts are going to be. And I think that really helps on the coaching side. And then, on the recruiting side, I sat in that chair, and I remember how different coaches made me feel, and what was important to me through the recruiting process, and what was important to me as a student athlete. And I think all of that just kind of helps you get a sense of what they're looking for, and how to provide that environment that I think every high-end, like competitive young woman wants out of their college experience. So I think just, knowing, having gone through it always helps.
Now, what are some of the roadblocks that college hockey players face once they get on campus that usually you don't expect, and how do you sort of help them get along through that challenge?
Yeah, well, funny enough, what we talked about earlier when we first started talking was we referenced culture, but the social stress. I think that's something that's so overlooked in college for any freshman, but student athletes are no different, right? Like finding your place, where you fit, and it was magnified for us this year with 18, just wanting to find your place. And so I think that social stress plays a big role. I think you can anticipate a little bit of homesickness around Thanksgiving, if not a little bit sooner. And then I think the stress, when midterms are about to start, when finals come around. So I think you have to empathize. Like, you can't just push through and expect, people to just keep performing and performing. I think you want to, strategically plan your schedule to kind of roll with those highs and lows, and support them, along the way.
Yeah, as a college student myself, I know some of those feelings, not with the athlete side of it, obviously, but just the stress that comes with it and the social circle as well. Because when I was a freshman last year, it felt like the whole COVID thing made it even tougher to sort of navigate that.
100%. And it's funny, and I mean, I'm sure like how you can, reflect now, like when you get to be a sophomore and junior, all the trivial things and the stress of being a freshman kind of seems a little bit funny as you get older, but it's
Yeah.
real. It's real when you're going through it and just trying to grow up and get comfortable.
Now, you won a gold medal. I have to ask about that because I normally don't get the chance to interview a gold medalist. So you were on that 2014 Canadian team. Just talk a little about your Olympic experience and what that was like playing with some legendary players like Poulin and Rebecca Johnston and all those players.
Yeah, I mean, really cool. I was fortunate enough, I guess my Hockey Canada experience started back with the very first U18 team. And when I was 17, it was the very first ever World Championships. So that was kind of how I got my first sniff with the program. And it was huge. I got to get a sense of, that high performance environment, what it took to play at that level and get that international experience. And I wanted to go back. That's all I knew. And I had that fire and I just wanted to continue to make teams. And I was grateful for that experience. And it wasn't until my junior year that I started to make the senior women's team, which is that Olympic team when it comes around every 4 years. And, I probably was cut from that team as many times as I made it. And it made the journey that much sweeter. But with regards to the Olympics, I was centralized. I was cut from that World Championship roster in 2013, and then I was named to that extended roster of 27 that was going to centralize and move out to Calgary and train and play and prepare for 9 months leading up to Sochi. And those 9 months leading up to the Olympics, honestly, are the ones that I really come back to. Like just what we went through as a group, all the challenges, how much I grew, the unique dynamic of like preparing to represent your country, but still be competing with the person next to you to even get to go,
Yeah.
like that experience completely changed my life. And it's why I do what I do today. I want to create those high performance environments that challenge and inspire young women. And I was grateful. I was lucky. I got to be one of those players that went on to the Olympics. And to be honest, once you get there, it's pretty much a blur. That preparation that you put in truly allows you to just play. Yeah, I can't tell you a lot of memories from specific games. I can't tell it like you're almost on autopilot because you're just so prepared. And that feeling was really cool. I can say that, no doubt. And allowed you to be in the moment, being in the village and surrounded by the greater Team Canada, which was a really cool thing, being at the Olympics, but pretty remarkable experience.
Where do you keep the gold medal today?
I keep it in my husband's safe, so it comes out every once in a while, but always fun when it does.
Do you ever show your team that? You got to do it once a year, I feel like, or you just want to sort of be humble about it. I understand that as well.
Yeah, it hasn't, it came out once this year. We had a small group kicking around campus before the Christmas break, and we were just kind of chatting with them in the study lounge, and they brought it up, so I brought it in, but, it hasn't been a full team yet.
Now, after your playing career was finished in pro hockey, I guess what made you want to become a coach? How did that process begin?
Yeah, I always wanted to coach. I think that's, a lot of people, I'm still somewhat young in my coaching career, and a lot of people still see the playing side, a little bit more prominently. But throughout all those years as a player, I knew I wanted to coach. And I feel grateful that I got so many of those amazing experiences at the highest level as a player because it all made me the coach that I am today. But yeah, I always wanted to be, and I'm so grateful that it worked out the way that it did. When I retired in 2017 and stopped playing, it was when that BU coaching job opened up, the assistant coaching job. And I might be skipping ahead here, but that's when I reached out to Brian, and he took a chance on me as a young coach. And first year and going in, getting to work at my alma mater completely changed my life. And I'm just grateful because every year there and getting to start my career just reinforced that it was where I was supposed to be and got to springboard my coaching career pretty quick.
Yeah, let's talk about Brian Durocher because he recently just retired. And from all the players that played with him, or I guess played for him, say that he always calls you on your birthday, and he's the mayor of Boston. That's what everyone says about him. What's it like working with such a legendary coach like that? And is it different than being a player being coached by him? Because that's must be sort of a weird relationship when that starts out, being a player with him and now sort of being one of his coworkers.
For sure. And I mean, all of those things I would completely agree with. He's a pretty legendary man and has had a remarkable career building that Boston University program from scratch. But that's it. I mean, I think the coolest part about getting to play for him and work with him is that it was pretty consistent. It really was. And that just speaks to the man and the character that he has. But I think you just see way more of the hard work behind the scenes. Yeah, when the players refer to him as the mayor, it's because he's always around. Like, he's BU through and through. He's a part of that community. You can't walk more than 2 blocks down Comm Ave without running into someone that knows him. And and I think that's just his passion for being around, right, and being an alum. And I'll never lose sight of that and how important that is in being a coach. And then, I really just learned a lot about his patience, his humility, him wanting to get to know the players and understanding that the little details matter. Like you said, whether it's birthdays or checking in on family or school, and all of that is, people think hockey when they think of coach, but it's so much more than that. And Brian lived that truly.
Yeah. What's it like? Talk about him as a person, because everyone says he's one of the nicest people ever. And I think when most people think about coaches in college hockey, you think of someone that's like yelling at the bench all the time, but he's sort of the complete opposite. He's just calm, cool, and collected, and really nice to his players about trying to help them out. And I feel like that must have helped you as a coach, sort of not just working on the hockey side, but trying to be a good person to your players as well.
Yeah, it just over time, it really does pay off and makes sense, right? Like, the players are the ones that are going out there, they're fired up. To be a consistent presence for them is just, I think is the most effective way to truly be understood and have your message get across and help guide them over time. And he really was just consistent approach to the game and his players. And would he get passionate and fired up sometimes? Yeah, but I think when he did, it meant more, right? Because it wasn't happening all the time. But I really do think that consistency in his approach was really effective.
Are you going to try to bring him to some Stonehill games next season?
Of course. Always bugging him.
Now, you helped develop some incredible players during your time with Boston University. You helped coach Jesse Confer, Sammy Davis, and Lacey Martin, just to name a few. And there's obviously a lot more names that I didn't mention. But was there anything that you took away from watching those players and that made you a better coach once you became a head coach? And just talk a little bit about the development of some of these elite players that you got to work with at BU when you were a coach.
Yeah, that's the coolest part. I think that as a coach, getting to work at such a high level with such amazing young athletes is that they make you better every day, right? Getting to work on the skill development side of things, like even just those 3 players you mentioned, like, so different, have different strengths and different mentalities and different approaches to the game. And it's at that point, right? Like, I really feel like at the college level, like, long gone are the days where coaches are coaching at you, right? It's more about working with the players to get the most out of their game and make it the most effective for this level. And so I think you just learn through every experience you get with them, learning how to push them, learning how to make adjustments. All of those players, everyone I got to work with at BU, they make you better every day. And it's such a pleasure to be able to work with them.
What's the difference between Sammy Davis and Jesse Confer offensively? Because I feel like they have very similar shots, and the way they skate is very similar as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at Jesse, I know, can play the wing too, but played center for us a lot when we were there. So Sammy being a lot of that power forward type of mentality, and Sammy is like, go. They both have that same compete level, but in a subtly different way. Jesse playing the middle lent to a little bit of a different style of game. But I think both of them were so effective. They're both very, very different people and fun to watch, but brought that same level of compete, which was really cool.
Now, in 2021, you were hired as the head coach of Stonehill. How did this opportunity come about, and what have the past 2 years been like for yourself in this position?
Yeah, I reflect on, I can't believe it's been 2 years now that I think about it, but it was really hard to ever think about leaving BU. When you get to start at your alma mater, it's pretty special, but I always wanted to be a head coach. And when the Stonehill job opened up, just 30 minutes down the road. It's hard not to, hard not for that to pique your interest. So, I looked into it and got a sense of what was going on. And obviously the location caught my eye and the opportunity to grow in my coaching, career. But I think what really, really kept drawing me in was that opportunity to build a program from scratch. I think a lot of people look at that potentially as a daunting task, but I think there's pros and cons, right? Like I got a year as a young coach to get my feet wet on campus, to get a sense of the community, to recruit the girls. And I felt like there was a great opportunity out there. So, from the moment I stepped on campus, I saw the beautiful campus here, the great academics, the support the team would have, and it was a no-brainer.
What was like some of the biggest challenges of starting a new program that you had to face, and how'd you go about them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was we're a small school, and we were a D2 school when I first took the job, and we were going to be the only D1 team on campus joining the NUHA. And that provided a lot of excitement and a great opportunity. But at the same time, being at a smaller school is just a little bit smaller, right? A little bit less people in the department and things like that. But the school actually ended up transitioning to D1 midway through our first year of recruiting. And that created a little bit of a challenge in terms of just now every team on campus is looking to grow, right? So it just created a little bit of that uncertainty. But I think long term, so excited for the college, right? Like it just shows that investment in athletics moving forward. So I think it was create a little bit of uncertainty in the moment of our build, and for a brand new program that needed a lot of love and attention, it created some of that uncertainty. But like I said, I think long term is the right move, no doubt. But I think if I were to reflect back, a lot of, just 22 new players in a room and trying to build that culture provides its own sense of challenges. But it really was. It was a great year. And I mean, I'm just so proud of how the girls played and how they represented the program.
Well, there was one year where you didn't play any games at all, so I assumed you guys were out recruiting. Just talk a little bit about that year when you weren't playing games and just going through the recruiting process as a head coach.
Yeah, I was lucky that I was able to bring on Megan Myers, one of our assistant coaches, in that first year. So I didn't have to do it alone. So that was a really cool part, getting to have her. So it was me and her. Kind of recruiting was a massive part of it. We were on the road almost every weekend. I felt like there was a unique opportunity with COVID and, the D1 rosters being really, really packed with that extra year. So, I really felt that there was a great opportunity out there and a lot of great players still out there. So we hit the road a lot, and recruiting was a huge piece of it. And then the other part was, that just getting involved in the community, getting a sense of what it's like here, starting to build up some of the infrastructure around what the girls were going to need with the locker room, designing our jerseys, like all the little things that you don't think about. But we got to have a hand in doing all of that, which was really cool.
I love your jerseys. I'm a big fan of purple. I feel like if it's done right, it's one of the best. Like I think Holy Cross has some of the best road jerseys in Hockey East, and I really like I think you have the best jerseys in NUHA.
Thank you. I'll have to let Megan know. She'll be happy to hear that. I'm a big fan too. The purples are awesome.
Was it an adjustment becoming a head coach versus an assistant? I'm assuming you have similar responsibilities, but it must be sort of an adjustment being the main person, that the face of the program. When you're an assistant, you're not really that.
For sure. Yeah, it's like, hockey's hockey, like you said, but there is a big difference. And one that I always laugh about is that problems all get brought to you. I think sometimes as an assistant coach, you don't always see all the little things going on, but a lot of little things just get brought to you, and just filtering through, what needs your immediate attention, what doesn't, what to be patient with. So I think that's a funny one that I reflect on. But I think the coolest part about it is that you get to build a culture with your staff and then your players, and really delegating and investing in your coaching staff around you, your extended staff amongst the department, and getting to help lead that group. And I think that was obviously what was new for me as a head coach, but what I was really excited about, because I truly don't feel like if you don't create the culture within your staff that you want from your players, then everything else doesn't matter. So it's kind of starting there and then building out from there. So that part was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's something I learned as well. Is someone was saying that like you also want your players to coach you sometimes as well, because sometimes coaches aren't perfect. So you sort of need that balance effect where your players are sort of willing to come and like ask you questions and sort of learn from each other, which I think is something that's starting to become more talked about, at least in the coaching aspect of hockey.
100% it is. And that, like we were talking about before, long gone are the days where you're coaching at them. It's an iterative
Yeah.
process where it's like we're here to work together to help you achieve your dreams and the team's goals.
Now talk about what's like coaching in Newha, because it seems like the conference has gotten a lot better over the years. You saw that this year with teams beating ECAC teams and Hockey East teams this year in out of conference games, and obviously with LIU being the first team ever to make it to the national tournament. So just talk about what's like coaching in that conference and the growth of it as well.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for women's hockey. I think it was about time. It was about time for there to be more Division I homes for girls to play in, and it's going to take time for our conference to continue to develop and build up those resources from program to program. But it was really cool, and the game has come a long way. There are competitive games, no doubt. You saw upsets even within our conference. But it was such an exciting year for our conference too, with the first year having the automatic bid to the national tournament. Something was on the line, and I think that is just going to help our league continue to grow too, with that excitement of getting to be a part of that national tournament.
Now, this past season, your team had a really solid year, surprising, I think, a lot of people, making the Newha semifinals. What were some positive things that you took away from last season, and what are some things I guess you want your team to improve on for next year?
Yeah, having time to reflect now a little bit. A lot of people would always ask me, like, well, how'd you think you're going to do? Like, are you exceeding expectations? And I didn't really know in the moment. You're just trying to get better every weekend. But if I were to reflect on it, I always thought that we could build something competitive, at least try to peak during playoffs and try to, I always thought we could at least put something competitive on the ice and maybe make a run. But I didn't anticipate putting together the body of work that our girls did. And that's a testament to them. They're Division I college hockey players. They deserve to be here. And they put together a pretty remarkable season in terms of just their body of work, whether it's at a conference or in conference, and really proud of what they did. And I think just continuing to grow next season. I think a little bit more confidence, a little bit more finesse to our offensive game, and a little bit more consistency and composure. I think the physicality our girls learned is a big part of it, and building that strength is going to be a big focus for the off season and just being ready to go.
Yeah, do you think that confidence and like learning that physicality and the players just getting better during the off season will help you build your consistency during the regular season? Because it felt like your team had a really good start, but then towards the middle of the year, it's sort of like you were on that losing streak and then sort of figured it out towards the end. How do you sort of try to get that consistency throughout the beginning of the regular season towards the end?
Yeah, and we really started to dial in on it, like getting towards the postseason, and I really believe that it has to do with how we communicate. We really focused on our standards and our mentality and how we want to approach the game, and not responding or getting too high or too low depending on whether it's a penalty, a goal, or whatever it is. And I can really say that they bought in, and we were building that and laid a strong foundation down the stretch. So I think it's just making sure that we pull those lessons with us and continue to grow as a group.
Now, we already talked about some of your roster moves that you're going to make for next season, but I love the out of conference schedule. It's something that I'm always interested in. Can you share some of your non-conference games if you're allowed to do that for next season, or are you still in the process of making it all work?
We are we're still in the process of solidifying it. I think the big thing is we have a sense of what it's going to look like, and it should be exciting. So keep an eye out, but just finalizing those contracts and making sure they're confirmed before going public with it. But keep an eye out. The out of conference schedule will be a lot of fun.
Awesome. That's something that I think needs to get better in women's hockey. I'm curious to your thoughts on that, because you only get 7 games, and I feel like it should be like the men's season where you get 10, because I feel like it leads for more teams to play against each other that normally don't get to play each other. And I think that's just better for the sport in general.
100%. And I think, now that women's hockey is growing, the operating budgets are growing, right, to be able to go out west or wherever it is. And it's exciting for the game. I think our league is going to be at a unique place with the addition of Assumption, of figuring out now we have a little bit less of an opportunity for those out of conference games. So figuring out whether maybe we go down to 3 games versus each other and create that room for at a conference. But I think we'll be at that tipping point as we move forward.
Now, I do want to ask you a couple of questions about the U18 Canadian team because you coached the last two teams that won gold medals. What was it like coaching those players in the under 18 level? Because it's probably a little bit different than college hockey just because they're not as mature. And just talk a little bit about like taking a break in the middle of the season just to do that because that sort of must be sort of a challenge as a coach to be focused on Stonehill and then sort of in the middle of the year to focus on Team Canada. And what was it like getting those gold medals and helping those girls achieve those memories that will probably last a lifetime, playing in Wisconsin and playing in Sweden?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Creating memories that will last a lifetime. I mean, getting to be a part of Hockey Canada in any capacity is always a dream come true, and I learn so much every time I get to go. And both experiences were amazing. And the way that it works is that you kind of start in August in the summer, and you have that summer camp 3-game series, and then the Worlds are usually not the COVID year. Are in January. So you kind of have those two touch points. But I mean, a lot of preparation goes into it virtually as you lead up to the tournament as well. So it was tough to leave mid-season, but I think it was so cool and humbling in a lot of ways that, Megan and Lauren did great when I was gone. So really, really investing in our staff to make sure that they knew the game plan and, then it was hands off. Like they were ready. They were going to be ready to be able to give the group what it needed. And they are three for four when I was gone. So a testament to them. But when you're in there, it's just you really feel like you're in a bubble of just everyone that's so passionate to get to represent their country uniquely, even though they're younger. With having such a young group at Stonehill, it was somewhat similar in age.
Yeah.
But they're just so good. And to get to work with such talented athletes that are so passionate, they're representing their country for the first time. You get to watch them put the jersey on for the first time. Like that's such a special experience. And it really is just bringing that calmness, getting them all on the same page and just letting them play. And two pretty special groups I got to be a part of.
Yeah, and the two different tournaments too, because obviously the first one was sort of weird with the whole COVID situation, sort of like canceling it, then rescheduling it, and then having it in June. And then this one seemed a little bit more normal. So how'd you sort of navigate the challenges of the first one? I'm just curious about that because that must have been hard to tell the players like, there's not going to be a tournament because that's something that they've probably been dreaming about their whole lives, and then sort of being like, hey, it's back and you got to go to camp and do all that stuff.
Yeah, it was a whirlwind, and it was tough. Yeah, because we selected that roster, we were preparing, and then it was canceled, and then it was back. And I think what made that experience unique for us in Madison was that we did our tryout, so it just extended the entire pre-Worlds competition. So I mean, we're talking about girls that have been not playing or not playing in big tournaments for their childhood, and now you're pulling them away from their family for almost over a month. So I think it was tough on them, especially during their graduation from high school and their prom and all that kind of stuff. So it provided some unique challenges there in terms of just the length of our pre-comp that we had to have going into Madison. And for them to experience that high performance environment, not having gotten it from their provincial programs, which they normally do. So it was definitely unique in that way, and the timing of the year that we had that tournament. But yeah, like you said, and then the second one being a little bit more traditional.
Yeah, and it seems like that those tournaments are getting so much better. Like you're seeing it not it used to be just USA and Canada, but you see those other countries are now really competing with you guys, which I think is good to see. And then obviously like I think they're now broadcasting it more, which I think is another good thing because I'm getting to learn about these players that I would have no idea about before they head into college hockey. And I want to ask you about two of them really. One that stood out to me last year was Brooke Disher. She's now playing for BU as a defender. What was it like coaching her and just talk about how she's grown as a defender? Because she, in my opinion, she did a great job as a captain for that team, but it's also been awesome to see sort of how she's gone better with BU, and you recruited her as well. So that's sort of something I want to ask you about as well.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure getting to work with Brooke. Like you said, having recruited her to BU, and she's just such a class act and so mature for her age. And you think about wearing the captain for your country and doing it when you're 17 years old. Like there is so much pressure there, and I just feel like she did it with so much grace and humility and composure. And it wasn't an easy tournament for that team. And to be able to bounce back and face some adversity and stick together as a group, I just have so much respect for her. And to me, she's just a gamer. She's got a great skill set. Obviously, she can skate 200 feet. She likes to get up in the rush. she's a 2023 style defenseman. And I think that's the cool part about her game, and I don't think you can teach that zero hesitation that she has, right? Like wanting to be involved, wanting to be in the mix. And she definitely has a really exciting future ahead.
And then another player that stood out to me was Alex Law from last year. What really made me stood out for her was during the first tournament that she played in, she really was sort of a bottom six forward. And then this past year, she exploded to be one of the best offensive players on the team. And even though she missed the game, I think she was second on the team in points. So talk about the growth that she made from the first tournament to the last, because that was something that really piqued my interest as a fan of just women's hockey and seeing the growth of these players.
Yeah, and I think that just speaks to like what experience does for you at that age, right? Like the tournament wasn't that long ago, but our whole leadership group and our group of returners, with Alex included in that group, like really brought an amazing leadership component to our group in Sweden. And it was so fun to watch her have a breakout tournament. I mean, she's just so dynamic and skilled with her hands and able to just create time and space for herself. She is one of the most passionate people I know that just brings energy to a room. You know, she just really thrived in that environment. And it was a pleasure working with her and watching her have that breakout tournament.
Now, I do need to ask you about a couple players on your Stonehill team, because I would be wrong if I only talked about Team Canada players. So first one was Alexis Petford, one of the best rookies in Newha this year. How did you find her? First of all, in the recruiting process, and talk about just how good of a freshman year she had and just the adjustment that she made so quickly.
Yeah, girl from Saskatchewan, Canada. I made a few trips out there, to say the least, but no, she did actually come out this way for the Beantown tournament in the summer, and had reached out and caught my attention right away. You know, I went to go see her play there. And what I loved about her game is that it can come off subtle, especially in those showcase style tournaments. But it just took one shot for me to see her and be like, that girl can score goals. And I think a very similar thing too, just her compete and tenacity. I think like she wants the puck on her stick. She wants to be in the mix, and she has great instincts, and she's a hockey player. And so that was the first time when she came out this way. And then I made a couple trips out to Saskatchewan as well, and got to see her play for her provincial camp and things like that. And grateful that she wanted to take a chance on me with this.
Then another player that I really liked a lot last year was Brianna Walcombe, a sort of an underrated player in your team. But when you talk about players that sort of fit the culture that you're looking for, I feel like Brianna is a big example of that, because interviewing her like last year, you can just sort of tell how excited she was to join the program, sort of help you guys out. And she was also telling me that she had to take a gap year, which you normally don't see in women's college hockey. So talk about how you got her to the program and just what she's meant to the program as well, because she's been, like I said, one of the more underrated players in Newha this year.
100%. We are so lucky to have Bree. Just what a class act. And I think it does show. I mean, the difference between 1 year, like having that extra gap year, just that maturity and professionalism that Bree brings to the table every day. It still blows my mind. You know, we were so lucky to have her. She's unanimous by her teammates in terms of someone that really elevated herself as a leader, and that just really adds to our team's culture and identity. And we're so lucky to have Bree. And she was crucial for us on the PK. She played down the middle for us, giving us a really, really good, consistent presence. And I don't know if you could find one person that wouldn't agree with all of us on that. So Bree was a great addition to the program.
So we're now in a segment I like to call the non-hockey segment, where I ask you some non-hockey questions just to get to know you a little bit more. First one is, what music do you like to listen to?
I'm pretty boring. I'm a country girl. I like to keep it consistent. But yeah.
Do you listen to the same country music as your players, or is it a little bit more like different than they do?
I probably would listen to Chris Stapleton more than they do. They're definitely into Morgan Wallen, I know, which I'll still listen to, but I like Chris Stapleton a lot, would be more where I lean.
Favorite TV show?
How I Met Your Mother.
I've actually never seen an episode of that. I need to start watching more TV. I'm too into baseball and hockey. I never get time to like binge on a show.
I hear you, and I'm not good at, like, that's an older one. I'd highly recommend it, but it takes a lot for me to get into a new series. Although Ted Lasso also would be up there.
Yeah, I feel like every coach loves that show. If you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
That is a tough one.
I guess I'll go with my answer. I'll do I'll do for hockey probably like Wayne Gretzky just because like he's dominated so much, and I'll just be curious to hear like what he has to say about like how he like sort of just playing that old school type of way, but like I just think it's crazy how he got all these points. Like I never saw him play, but it just sort of baffles my mind like how good he was. So just sort of talk to him about his career and what he thinks about the growth of hockey.
Yeah, that's a great point. I guess I could build up that. I mean, Bobby Orr, like just such a unique and what he did for the game and before his time, no doubt. So that'd be pretty cool.
What is the most interesting thing you've read or seen this week?
That is a great question.
I'll go with mine first so you can think
Yeah.
about it. But kind of piggybacking on Bobby Orr, I didn't realize how he sort of got screwed over by his agent. He was going to sign with the Bruins and have like 18% of ownership with the team. And I guess his agent never told him about that. And he signed with Chicago instead. And now he lost like so much money because of it. And it sort of led him to be an agent where he is today. So I thought that was pretty cool. I never knew that story.
Wow. I guess I'll be boring and I'll go with just all my players' answers in our individual meetings following the season. That kept me on our toe. That kept us on our toes and a lot of fun to debrief the year.
That's good. That's good. And then last non-hockey question is your favorite class you ever took in college?
I would say well, in undergrad, epidemiology. I was like, I studied health science, so just that study of disease and how the environment affects it was really cool.
It's probably paid dividends, especially the last few years with everything going on.
Crazy to think about, but true, no doubt.
Now back to some hockey questions now. First one is, what advice would you give a younger player that's listening to this podcast on what it takes to make it to the college hockey level where you were and where your players are now?
Yeah, I really think what gets lost now is being an athlete first. As long as you can, I think the recruiting landscape being so young there and just other factors. But, girls are just specializing in hockey way too young. And the longer you can be an athlete and play multiple sports, your ceiling's just going to be so, so much higher. You don't have to skate 12 months out of the year. Take a break, get in the gym, play a different sport. That's just going to allow you to grow that much more. I would say just keep trying to find programs and teams where you feel connected to the group, you feel like your coach can help develop you. And I think a lot of times we kind of chase teams that we think are going to be in these showcases or these tournaments, but as long as you're working to develop every year, I think your career will play out. I really feel bad that with the women's hockey landscape being the way that it is right now, professional hockey is growing and we're hopeful, but I feel like girls feel the pressure to have success at such a young age, right? Like if I'm not going to college, then I'm not going anywhere. But you have control over your career. It can be a very long one. You don't have to have all the success by the age of 17. Keep pushing through and getting better, and it will work out.
What should be done to help grow women's hockey, in your opinion? I think mostly for the college side of things, because I think a lot of people can agree that the program is really where women's hockey is going to grow. And I had the chance to talk to Chris McKenzie from UConn. He told me, saying pretty much, he says, once the pro game means more of the Olympics, that's when women's hockey is going to skyrocket. So I feel like a lot of coaches agree on that. But from a college hockey perspective, what are some changes you want to see in women's college hockey that you think will help grow more viewers, I guess, to watch the sport?
Yeah, I think we're getting there, no doubt. Having that coverage, I know ESPN has really stepped in and been a consistent platform now for a lot of the leagues to be showed on. I think keep growing the NCAA tournament. I think if we can keep growing the tournament, we're up to 11 teams now, but whether it's regional sites or, getting a little bit closer to what the men do, we might not be ready for that yet, but I think the more that we can continue to grow the game, I look at schools in Michigan, you look at I think there's a lot of homes that could be out there too. So, it's an exciting time for women's hockey. And I think there's some different things that could go on to help it grow.
Just in Massachusetts alone, the official University of Massachusetts, UMass, doesn't have a women's hockey team, which I always find sort of funny how the state school doesn't have a women's hockey team in arguably one of the biggest hockey states in the U.S.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So I think one more question is I want to see Frozen Fours be played in sort of non-campus sites, which is sort of a unique opinion for me. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the benefit of having, I guess a predetermined regional site and then, maybe a bigger venue for, the final Frozen Four, like the benefit along that line of a regional site being predetermined is that you can really promote it all year, right? Instead of waiting to see who the top seed is, who's going to host it. And then, you build some excitement there, and then, you go to a little bit of a bigger venue. I think the product is there. And the benefit of that is people want the experience, right? As much as people are going to watch the hockey, like to go to a really cool venue, to go to, whether it's TD Garden or whatever it is, right? I think if you can generate enough excitement and invest enough money into the marketing and promotion side of things too, and you put it in a good location for hockey, I think that the venue is going to excite people almost just as much as the product's going to, and it like to create that atmosphere, right, where people feel part of something bigger, I think could really excite the Frozen Four.
Yeah, because I saw that the Beanpot's going to TD Garden, which I think is great news. And I just feel like, the places that they've had the Frozen Four, it's like hard for fans to get to because they're really not near major airports and they're sort of in places where they're hard to get to. And I feel like if you put it in like a Boston or I don't know what other places like Minneapolis, like places like AHL ranks or NHL ranks where they're near like airports where people can go see. I just feel like it'll be grow the sport more where it's not super regionalized in these campus sites where the Frozen Four is. That's sort of my opinion on that.
I don't think that's a bad one at all, no doubt.
Well, Tara, do you have any shout outs you want to give to any of your, I guess, current players, former teammates, coaches, family members? Feel free to do that. The floor is all yours.
Shout out to the family, of course, mom and dad, my niece Kennedy, nephew Colson, what a group. And then, I guess just shout out to my staff all the way through, Megan, Lauren, Pete, Chris, James, Christy. Wouldn't have been able to do it without any of you this year, and feel very grateful.
Well, thank you so much, Tara, for your time and getting the chance to talk with me today. I really enjoyed our conversation. I learned a lot, and I wish you and your team nothing but success for the future. I think you guys are building something really special in Stonehill, and I'm excited to see the growth of the program in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Really enjoyed it.